Afternoon, my friends. I decided that I'm going to tell you a story. Some years back, I was working as a baker. I was actually an apprentice in a bakery, trainee to become a baker. But the thing was that I got some allergies towards the flowers. I had to stop this apprenticeship, so I could not become a baker. And then I was in this situation where I kind of said, well, what to do now? What do I want to do now? What kind of job? Do I need to start a new education? Or, it's always like that when something like that happens. But anyway, I decided that I was going to take just a break. And at the same time, my parents was about to leave for a vacation. They were gonna go to Norway to stay in a cabin in the mountains in Norway. It was all paid for, and whether there were one or more or less in the car didn't make a difference. So I decided to go with them. And while we were up there, we just had a vacation for a week, staying in this cabin. And while we were there, I kind of decided I wanted to stay in Norway. So one of the last days, I started to look for a job. And right away, I didn't find anything. And I went, on the last day they were there, I went to the local employment office. And I was asking about, unskilled labor. And the lady at the office, she said, oh yeah, there's a farmer who needs a farmhand. And he just needs someone to help him at the farm with the harvest and all. And I was like, well, I can do that. So she said she was going to call him. And she called the guy, and I talked to him on the phone. And we agreed that that was all good. I was gonna come around his place later in the day, and that was the deal. And then I went back to my parents. They were down from the mountains down in the town looking around. They wanted to buy some souvenirs before they went back home. And I told them that I found a job and I was gonna go do that job and stay in Norway. At this time, I must have been like, 25, I think, 24, 25, around that age. And they were like, oh, well, okay. They knew I got all kinds of ideas every now and again, so they're kind of used to my impulsive way of living, I should say. So they just kind of agreed to, well, okay, no problem. Even though they told me later on that at the time when they actually left for to go back home, and they looked in the mirror and saw me stand there at the side of the parking lot in town, and they drove away from there. They were like, they say they were a little worried, just leaving me there in another country with just what I got in my backpack from the holiday. But it was okay. I had made a deal with the lady at the employment office that I should come back there because she actually lived near where the farmer he lived, the one I was going to go work for. So she could give me a lift there in the evening when she go home from work. And I was like, oh, cool. So I went back to the employment office and waited for half an hour or so, and then it was her time to go home. So I got in her car and we drove to the farm, and we went over there, and she actually went into the farmyard and had a chat with the guy, and we talked about it, and it was all good. And then she left, and this old guy, he was like in his 80s or something. he showed me that he had on the property was actually 2 cabins. One cabin he lived in, and it looked, well, kind of old and run down and not very nice actually. He didn't have running water in his cabin. He had it's like a garden hose outside, just outside the door with a tap. So when he needed water, he would go out there and take some water and close the tap again and drop it on the ground. And it was just, I was like, that's very primitive, but well, it works, I guess. Then he showed me the other cabin, and it was actually a log cabin. It was quite nice. And there was a big living room, and there was a small bedroom. There was no, well, there was a room that could have been a kitchen, but there was no, yeah, there was a fridge, but there was no stove or anything like that, and no running water. But then he showed me if I went outside, there was a door at the back of the cabin, and in there was actually a bathroom with a shower and a toilet, so I could use the. And actually there was a water heater as well, and just electric water heater. Just had to switch it on before I wanted to go take a shower and switch it off after. But that was all cool, all good, no problem. And this old guy, he was kind of, he right away he said I could eat at his place. It was easier if we ate together. It would be cheaper for both of us, and and also the company was nice, so yeah, sure, I could do that, so and then it was kind of evening, and I just went back into the cabin, and he went to his one, and I was like, wow, what have I gotten myself into? This old guy, he looked like he looked like he was living his life very primitive and very, how to say, well, back then I was used to living in a house with the telly and, all the amenities, but here it was just very, very basic. But then again, I thought, well, let's try it. It's nothing, what can happen? Just let's try. And I stayed there I actually worked for him for a month and a half. And he had some strange ways, He ate the same kind of food every day, and he did the same things every day, and it was just, and his way of farming was extremely old-fashioned, and then, as I say, after a month and a half, I was running out of money, and he hadn't paid me anything yet, so I thought, well, I better ask him when he will pay me my salary, because it's I was running low on money, and when I asked him about salary, he looked at me surprised, and he was like, but salary? You got a place to stay and I give you the food. That must be enough. And I was like, that was not exactly the deal. And then I realized we hadn't even, it was not like we had shaken on a certain amount or anything, so it was kind of my own fault, and so I was really getting, frustrated with this, and he was completely serious. He was not gonna pay me anything. I could stay at his cabin and I eat with him, but money, no, he was not gonna give me any money. So then I say to him, well, then I have to go find another job, because this is not this is not happening. I need to make some money. I cannot live like this. I just saw inside my head, I just saw the picture of me staying there, eating like him and living like him for the next many years, because I wouldn't be able to afford to go anywhere. So, but I still had some money, so I went down and catch the bus to town, to the employment office. And actually, I met the same lady who drove me there originally, and talked to her and told her about it, and also told her that I needed something else where I would get salary. And she was like very surprised that she was, but that's not even legal. She said, he cannot do like that. He need to pay you. I was like, just let me find another job, and And then she helped me find another job at another farm, but it was in the next valley over. And I called the owner of the farm. It was actually a family who owned that farm, and they needed a farmhand. So we agreed that I should go back and find out when I could go there, because I would need to catch a bus or something. So I went back to the old guy's farm and and told him that I quit and I wanted to leave, and I found another job. And to my big surprise, the old guy, he said, "Oh, that's good for you. Where is it?" And I was like, "Well, it's in the next valley over." And he said, "No, but that's great. I'm gonna take you there." And that really surprised me, because he was very, well, not to say anything bad about him, but he was, very stingy. He didn't spend money at all. And now he offered me to take me to another farm in the next valley over. And that would cost him some gas, but, well, okay. I took him on the offer and actually borrowed his phone. He had a house phone, landline phone. So I borrowed the phone and called the owner of the other farm and told him that if it was okay with them, I could come there same evening. And they were like, "Oh, yeah, that's good. We need someone immediately, so that would be great." So that was all good. So same evening, I packed up my stuff and we left and drove to the next valley over. And when we got there, it looked a lot nicer. It was like a nice house, and not a big house, but it was nice. And as I said, it was a family and all. So and the old guy and the farmer, they had a little bit of a chat, and then the old guy, he drove off. And then I was at my new job. At this place, I was going to stay in a room in their house. And this family, it consisted of 3 people. There was the dad. His name was Olav, I think. Yeah, it's a lot of years ago. I think it was Olav. And then there was the mom. And I honestly, I don't remember her name. And then they had this daughter. I believe she was 10 years old. 10 years old. And it was her summer holiday. So she was home every day. And, well, it was all good. And in the evening, we were sitting in the living room and talking and watching telly. And also we had agreed about the salary. I didn't make the same mistake one more time. So we agreed about that already. And also that food and house, food and living quarters was included. So that was all good. And next morning we started working. We were gonna go to a field a little bit away from the house. And everybody just kind of got up on the tractor It was a tractor with a small cart after, and he was driving. Olaf, he was driving, and everybody else sitting on the cart. And then we drove to the field. And in the field, it was just normal farm work, you know. He would use the tractor to cut the grass, and we would kind of rake it into some piles, and then it was supposed to lay there and dry. And it was good. I enjoyed it, you know, outside and fresh air and all, and so a nice job. And we were talking and, you know, kind of enjoying ourselves while we were working. And then round 11:30, Olaf, he would look at his wife and tell her, "So now you can go home and make lunch." And she would get up to the tractor and put her rake and everything, and then start walk back to the farmhouse. And then we would work on a little bit for like 5 minutes or so, and then put all the tools back on the tractor, back on the cart, get on the cart, and drive back to the farm. And actually, this way, we would be back at the farm at the same time as she did, the wife, because she had to walk for some reason. So, and then when we get back to the farm, the husband would go into the living room and lay down on the sofa and wait for the food to be served, because the wife went into the kitchen and started cooking lunch, and he would be on the sofa smoking a cigarette. Actually, about the cigarette, he would go into the living room, lay down, and then call his daughter to bring him his tobacco and his rolling paper. She would do so. Get it? It was on the kitchen table. Take it, bring it to him. He rolled a cigarette, smoked a cigarette, and took a nap. When the wife was finished cooking his lunch, the daughter would go wake him up, and then he'd go sit in the kitchen at the end of the table, and the food was right in front of him, so he could take his food. And then everybody else could take when he was, you know, when he had taken what he wanted, everybody else could take. And then when he was finished eating, no matter whether everybody else was finished or not, then he would tell the daughter to go get his tobacco, because it was in the table in the living room. So she would get up, walk to the living room, get his tobacco and his rolling paper, bring it to him, and then he would roll a cigarette and smoke a cigarette. And when he had smoked a cigarette at the kitchen table, he would get up and go lay down on the sofa right next to where the tobacco was just before. And I was kind of surprised of this way of, you know, it's to me it seemed like it was kind of strange, you know, because why didn't he, you know, when he left the sofa, or actually already when he walked through the kitchen to go to the living room to take his nap while the food was cooked, he could bring the tobacco himself. Or for that matter, when he left from the couch to the kitchen, he could, but, well, I didn't say anything because, well, that's their way of doing things. I'm not the one to judge other people's way of living and all. Another thing that I kind of noticed that I didn't, well, agreed about, he would use, when he talked to the wife, he would use a Norwegian word. He would say, sharing. And I'm trying to think of a word in English that would equal that word. I mean, it's a not very nice word for wife. I don't think I can think of a word in English that could be used for that, but it's a not very nice word for wife. And he would use that word all the time when he talked to her. He would say, Shang, don't do this, or Shang, you can go home and cook dinner now, or so on. And I was like, why he talk to her like that? She don't deserve that. It's not fair. But well, again, that was their way, so I didn't say anything. But I just kind of kept my mouth, and you know, in the beginning I was there. He was nice to me and all, and no problem there. But after a month or so, he started treating me similar to the way he treated his wife and his daughter. Like, well, he was the king of the house, and he was the one making all the decisions. He was the one who was supposed to get the food first, and everybody was supposed to do or say what he wanted us to. And sure, while we work, I will do anything he say. And of course, I live in his house, so I have to follow the way they live. But I was starting to wonder what was going on here. It just seemed wrong in my eyes, and I didn't like when he talked to me in that way he did. But I had spent the evenings looking for a new job, and I had sent an application for another job at a hotel. They were looking for a kitchen hand on the hotel, and I had sent my application. I didn't really know what the job really was, but I just wanted a job to get away from that farm. And I thought, well, work at a hotel must be all right. So I hadn't heard any answer. I hadn't gotten an answer from the hotel, but I just had enough of the guy, and I had a bit of an argument with him one evening. So the next day I packed up my stuff and left. He paid me my money, and so I ended up being at the farm for 2 months, and then I walked out. I have to say now, though, I had looked at a map, and the hotel was in the mountains, approximately 20 miles away from where I worked at the farm. And I figured, 20 miles, I can walk 20 miles in a day, no problem. So I put my backpack and started walking. And I only had this paper map. But, it's not a problem. I done my share of hiking, and so it was alright, and I thought I'd just hike across the mountains. I could have walked on the road, but that would make it into maybe 50 miles. So I figured, hike across the mountains, that would be better. So I did, and it was a wonderful hike. I really enjoyed it. It was in summertime, and the temperature was late summer, I guess. But still, the temperature was nice, so it was okay. And I brought water so I could get something to drink. And the wife had actually, without the husband knowing, made me a lunch pack, so I had some food with me as well. So it was a good trip, really was. I enjoyed it, and I kept track of where I was on the map, and had some wonderful hours walking across the mountains. And then at one point I just got over a ridge. I was walking on some small tracks. It was not really a road, but it was just like a hiking track. And I got over this ridge, and I could see the hotel. It was not on the top of a mountain. It was kind of a little bit of a valley. It's like you have the mountains in Norway, and then it's flat. And it was there on the flat area. So I was looking down on this hotel, and it just looked so nice. The area and all, right next to a big lake, and there was a dam, and really, really beautiful area, and it was so quiet up there. So I was like, oh, I want to stay here. I really, really want to stay here. So I just walked down from the mountain down to this valley and down to the hotel. And at this point, I had crossed a couple of rivers, tried not to get too wet, take my shoes off and fold my pants up. But hiking, you do get a bit, a bit dirty and all. And also my right shoe had come apart. So I didn't have any duct tape. Also, it would be obvious to tape it, but I didn't have any, so I had to use, I actually put a sock. I cut a sock into pieces and put the shoe back together with the sock to keep it, in place. So when I get to the hotel, I don't know, I didn't look at myself in a mirror, but I must have looked like, yeah, well, something. But anyway, what can you do? It was the only pair of shoes I brought, and I couldn't really take a shower before I went in, so I just went into the reception area and introduced myself. And then actually the lady standing there was the head of staff, and she looked at me and said, I introduced myself and told her that I sent an application a week ago, and now I couldn't stay at the place where I was working before, so I thought I would come see what you would come ask for your decision. And obviously, if you don't want to hire me, I will just, take off. And she was looking at me and she said, where did you work before? I said, no, just one valley over. And how did you get here? I said, no, I walked across the mountains. It was a nice walk. And she was like, that's like 20 miles. You walked 20 miles to ask if you can get the job. You know what? And then she reached over behind her, grabbed a room key for a hotel room and gave me. And she told me, go down to this room, have a nice hot shower, take a rest, and then 5 o'clock in here is the restaurant. You just go in there and get some food, because you look tired. And I was like, I'm not really that, but thank you anyway, it's nice of you. And then she told me, tomorrow morning, I will meet you here, 9 o'clock. And then we can talk, and then I made a decision by 9. So whether you can get a job, and if you get the job, I will get you a room and all. And if you don't get a job, you will have to leave. And I said, yeah, that's cool, no problem. And then she just, as I walked away, I saw her just shaking her head like in disbelief. I was like, oh. I went down to the room and had a nice shower and a rest, and 5 o'clock went into the restaurant and had some dinner and enjoyed my evening, watched some telly for the first time in long, and then had a good night's sleep in a soft hotel bed. It was really luxury. And the next morning, as always, I was down at the reception area already 8:45, and I think it was like 5 to 9 or something. The lady, she came and she said to me, come, let's have a talk. Yeah, sure. And we went into her office and we sat and had a chat about it. And she said, well, after we had this talk, she said to me, yeah, I decided I'm gonna hire you as a kitchen hand, and there's only one problem. We don't have enough staff rooms, so you have to stay in this hotel room until we can get you a staff room. There will be a vacant staff room within 1-2 weeks or so. I was like, that's perfectly alright with me, because that hotel room is kind of luxury. And she laughed and she was like, well, that's good. But anyway, here, through this door, that's the staff dining room. And you can go there, get some breakfast, and then you can say hi to your colleagues. I went into the staff dining room and said hi to the people I saw there, and they asked me, who are you? And I was like, well, my name is Lars, and I'm gonna work here as a kitchen hand. And one of them was, crack a smile, and then he said, "Ah, okay, you're gonna be a dishwasher then." Oh well, okay, never mind. And he said, "Oh, you look surprised." See, yeah, I didn't know that was a dishwasher, but it's okay with me. And then they laughed and they say, "So you say yes to a job without knowing what it is?" So yeah, I needed a job, so. But it was cool. I stayed at this hotel for 8 months. Yeah, I worked there for 8 months, and I had a great time. It was almost all the staff was young people, my age. But anyway, yeah, Norway. One day I'll go back, and well, that'll be another story. That was my adventure from Norway, across the mountains. I hope you enjoyed the story. And remember, life is good. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.